Happy Sunday. It is Sunday, April the 14th at 12:33 a.m. Let's see here. Cancer is rising and the moon is in Cancer. It does not look like the moon is making any aspects until it changes signs later tonight, but the traditional texts often say that the moon cannot be void when it is in Sagittarius, Pisces, or Cancer. Cancer, because that is, I believe Taurus as well, because Cancer is the moon's domicile, and Taurus is the moon's exaltation, and Jupiter in Pisces is the domicile of the greater benefic. So I think we're okay. Just know that it's a little watery. So that might make this a little intense, but I think the moon is good for divination. So I'm not going to hate. Let me see who's the. Oh, that's Reed asking me if there's any sound. All right. Let me make this live so I can watch what y'all looking at. Okay. So in the 2019 Sidereal Astrology Guide, which is next to my bed because that's where I use it. Is there another one? Actually, there might be. Hold on. No, there is one over there. In the 2019 Sidereal Astrology Guide for the um, monthly summary of April, I talked about how the end of 2019, or rather the end of 2018, completed this long slog of our Jupiter house being occupied, Jupiter, Libra house. For all of us, whether we have planets in Libra, and I'm again speaking sidereal as always, whether or not we have planets in Libra, from September of 2017 all the way through January 1st of 2019, your Libra house was occupied by some planet. First, we started off with Jupiter entering Libra, which was justice for and by women. Um, then, obviously, we had a slew of planets transiting through Libra the fall of 2017. That would have been October and November. Jupiter remained in Libra all of 2017, from September 1st until October 5th of 2018. Venus was in Libra while Jupiter finished up its transit through Libra. Once Jupiter left Libra, Venus stayed there for 4 months because of a retrograde. January 1st of 2019, Venus finally left Libra. So now, at this full moon in Libra, which is at 4 degrees, this is uh, Friday, April 19th. This is the first time that we will all have significant um, uh, a significant configuration or transit in our Libra house since the end of last year. A lot of times it's very hard to figure out which life events correlate to which transits. But for Libra, it's often very clear that this is about the contracts that explicitly and implicitly bind our relationships with other people. The explicit contracts that bind our relationship with other people are often codified in contracts, written or verbal, as well as in law, right? Law is an explicit contract around how we are expected to behave in order to be involved in community. So that brings me to a big theme of this week, which is Venus. It has not really been the center of attention for us since the end of 2018, when it was really the primary focus. So, women, women's causes, women's issues. Obviously, in America, we saw that that meant that an unprecedented number of women not only ran for Congress, not only ran for Senate and other municipal and state level political positions, they won. We have more women in the United States Congress than ever before in the history of this country. Venus, it's retrograde in Libra, Jupiter in Libra, the culmination of the Me Too movement, all of these things were represented by the end of 2018's astrology. Now we are in 2019, which has an entirely different tone. I've called this time period mutable madness, which means things are changing based on our experiences, based on new information that we receive, and we are trying to figure out where and how to anchor ourselves. From where do we find the motivation to act and be and think? Of course, because Sagittarius is the anchor where Saturn is, where Jupiter is presently, where Jupiter will return to at the end of this year while Saturn is still in Sagittarius for a brief time. We know that our own intentions, right, the convictions that inform our intentions, the why, I call it the intentional why, is really the anchor. And what we're really being asked to do is to refine our intentions. So, this week, Venus enters Pisces, which is tomorrow, and immediately squares Jupiter in Sagittarius. I wrote a very deep and long, thoughtful thread on Twitter about this, and I encourage you to visit my Twitter page and read the thread. You can always go to the media tab of my Twitter profile and click the image that says the People's Weekly Forecast. From there, you can see me talking about all of the astrology of this week, which includes Venus um, entering Pisces, continuing this Pisces phase of Mutable Madness 2019, Venus square Jupiter, talking about how that goes back to January 22nd when Venus and Jupiter conjoined in Scorpio. And I'm sure I'll have more to say about Libra. But again, Libra represents, and this is really interesting because a lot of times people conflate Venus Taurus with Venus Libra, and they're very different. When we talk about the aesthetic consensus, style, beauty, art, color, um, music, photography, fashion, culture in the aesthetic sense. This is not Libra, okay? This is Taurus, okay? That Taurus is an earth sign. It's concerned with what can be perceived with the senses, sight, sound, taste, touch, hearing. Libra Venus is very, very, very different. While Venus always asks the question, how do you conform and adapt in order to be liked and validated? What kinds of changes and adjustments do you make to your behavior and your persona and yourself in order to be in relationship, in order to be in community? So that when we have a full moon in Libra, the sun is in Aries and the moon is in Libra. Remember, if you've watched my previous videos about full moons, you know that at the full moon, the story is really about the house the sun occupies. The moon is providing us perspective or the ability to see and objectify what exactly is happening in our Aries house. Aries is the sign of the strength and force of will. I do this because I can. Aries enforces its will on the world around it through the strength of its will. It literally wants to move and change the world so that the world changes. If I pick up and move a block, I'm literally using the strength of my will to change the world around me. And so Aries asks, how am I moving? What actions am I taking? What am I literally physically doing in my body with myself in my Aries house to enforce my will on the world around me? I wrote some really great things about that on Twitter last night. So you might want to check the weekly forecast graphic from last week that talks about the sun in Aries. So what the full moon in Libra does for us, um, I don't know if this is still going, but sorry, I'm just looking at the video kind of stalling, and I don't know if it's doing that just for me or for y'all too. I don't know, it's just doing it for me. Okay, um, uh, so um, what was I saying? So when we come to the full moon is providing us perspective. Oppositions always say, don't go too far in one direction. It's saying, hey, I know that you do things because you can, because you want to, because you have the physical capability to do so. I know that autonomy is so important. I know that the capacity and ability to control your environment based on your own strengths and your own will is so important to you. But the full moon in Libra reminds us of our social contracts. It reminds us of our implicit agreements, meaning those that are implied by the nature of the relationship, the nature of the connection. There's an implied contract between mother and child based on the nature of the connection. And so in community, we create laws around this implied contract so that the mother might have some sense of what is appropriate, right? So, for example, it is not appropriate to leave your child on the back porch for 12 hours, right? We call this reckless endangerment, right? Because of the implied contract between mother and child says mother is the safe place, mother cares for her child, mother has custody and is responsible for the well being of the child. If the mother does not provide for the well being of the child, what is the social remedy for that? This is what laws are for. So we know just in general principle that things around laws, things around the Me Too movement, things around justice for and by women can definitely resurface this week. On a more personal level, we are asking ourselves, what about the implicit and explicit contracts in our lives? What are the agreements that we have, right? How are we moving and maintaining connection? How do relationships actually allow us to exercise autonomy, create containers for us to use the strength of our will in order to enforce it on the world around us? Opposite signs work together. If there is just Aries, this is fire consuming with nothing to stop it. No consideration. Stop, pause, wait. That's great that I can, but should I? Right? So that is the general tone of this full moon in Libra. People are always asking me what cards I use. This is the Golden Tarot deck. Once again, the King of Cups is on the bottom. That is so funny because I've definitely used this card since my new moon tarot reading, and I promise you, during that last reading, I turned the cards around just to show what these cards look like, and definitely the King of Cups was on the bottom. So I'm not even going to read into that because it's not relative. Now, if that card shows up after I shuffle, then we might have something to talk about, obviously. So generally, this this reading is not personal in the sense that I am reading for any particular placement or any particular person. I'm not particularly reading for myself. I am reading for us. So for me, this is really like a tarot sermon. If you have been to church or witnessed a homily or whatever kind of speech that your religious or spiritual leader might do in your religious service or gathering, think of it like that, right? That even though they are not speaking directly to you on a very personal sense with personal knowledge of what's going on in your life, it is still relevant in so many ways. So we take the meat, throw away the bones, take what we need and throw away the rest. So this is tarot church for me. This is what what does the full moon have for us? What lessons and opportunities and challenges are we dealing with? What is the story of this full moon? And always just be thinking about what you can get from what is being given here. Again, this is not directly with personal knowledge of anyone's life. Just like you, I actually go back and rewatch this video after I finish the reading because I'm not reading for myself personally. I have to go back and see, okay, where does this align with my own life? And of course it does, just like it does with you guys. I'll be watching the the chat window for comments and questions. Again, this is not an opportunity to ask for a personal card reading or for something personal about your chart, but I am willing to answer general questions about astrology and tarot in general, as well as the cards that I lay down. If you are interested in a reading with me, um, you can go to my website, thepeoplesoracle.com, and click book a reading. Right now, I am offering my annual eclipse special. It's a 1 hour reading for $90 that helps us to put together your eclipse story. We want to know where Gemini and Sagittarius are in your birth chart. We want to know what your natal promise is regarding those houses, meaning where's Jupiter and Mercury and what does it have to say? What do those planets have to say about the Gemini and Sagittarius houses in your birth chart? And then we'll pull together a timetable of what these eclipses mean for you and what you can expect. Again, you can go to my website, thepeoplesoracle.com, to book that reading. And I'm just using this time to shuffle these cards. So, let's see what happens here. This is for the full moon in Libra. I've been anxiously awaiting doing this with you guys today. So I appreciate all of you coming and joining me today. And I'm going to shuffle just a couple more times. As always, the card on the bottom of this deck after I cut is our guiding card. This is the card that represents kind of the overarching theme or as a significator for this full moon. And the rest of the cards, which will probably be about 9 cards, are the rest of the cards are expounding on this theme. Hi, Pamela. How do I feel about relocation charts for choosing a place to live? I've heard some great stories about them. I've not used them personally, um, but I've heard some great stories about them. So I'd say try it out. Try it out. All right. And see what happens. In your next reading, we can look at that, Pamela. Um, yeah. So, okay. One more shuffle, and then we're ready to cut the deck. See what is on the bottom here. All right, we've got the devil. This card is weird because it's got like those little ghosts at the bottom. I don't even know what that means. It's got the limniscate. I've got one. Oh no, here it is. That limniscate on the top of his head, infinity. Um, devil is a card that represents a couple things. It represents the fact that as much as we are, spiritual beings having a quote, human experience, as they say in the New Age world, um, as much as we may be into metaphysical things and things we cannot see, things that are beyond the purview of our physical experience, we are on earth, right? There's a phrase used too heavenly bound to be any earthly good. And the devil card reminds us that you're on earth in a body, right? And all of the things that go along with that pleasure, difficulty, the material things that are required in order to maintain this existence, and how easy or difficult it is for us to acquire these things. The devil can also mean kind of mastering the material realm. What does success look like for you? What does material success look like for you? How are you able to function in this material world? How are you faring? Are you having money issues? Are you having health issues? Do you feel trapped in this physical existence because you're feeling like you do not have the markers of success that would make you, um, feel validated in the material world? So, as simple as possible, the devil card is you are in a material reality. You are on earth. You are in a body. What do you need to thrive here? Do you have it? What do you need to succeed? What does that look like? Right? I have often seen the devil card mean sex. That's a possibility too, but I would want to see some other cards next to it. And I don't know if that's an appropriate thing to talk about in a reading like this, but we'll find out. It might just be there, and I can't do nothing about it if it's there. So yeah, we're going to be thinking about the material realm and how are we faring and money and success, um, survival in some ways, right? Being able to conquer the material realm in a very literal sense. Let's not be too deep here, even though it is a tarot reading. So like, how could we not be deep? Is the whole point of reading symbols. All right, first 3 cards here. I'll pull this around and show you. We've got the Ten of Swords, the Hierophant, and the Wheel of Fortune. The Hierophant came up for us in the reading that we did, um, for the new moon in Pisces a couple weeks ago, or like a week ago, whatever it was. Um, so, Ten of Swords, Hierophant, and Wheel of Fortune. Already, um, we've got three of the trump cards. So let's start in the center here. The Hierophant is the card of should. What should I do? What are the social expectations around how I should behave? What is the right thing? I mean, this is really repeating language that I was just talking about when I talked about Libra and our social contracts. When the Hierophant came up in the new moon reading a couple weeks ago, I suggested that the 2 figures at the bottom might represent our parents, and how the Hierophant often represents institutions that kind of determine the implicit side of the social contract. right? There are laws that we follow because the consequences are legal, like don't steal, don't shoot anybody, um, don't sell on the street without a permit, don't drive your car without a license, don't fight dogs in your backyard, right? These are all explicit contracts, explicit rules that are codified in our law books. And by being a citizen in a particular locale, you are agreeing to that contract. But there are other kinds of contracts, and these are social contracts that say, by the nature of your relationship with someone, by the nature of the hierarchy that exists in our society, this is how you're expected to behave. This is how you are expected to live your life, the partner that you should marry, right? Religious institutions often give us the rules for our implied social contracts for how mother and child should relate, husband and wife, child, elder and youth. And this is what the Hierophant represents. What are these institutions that are um, what are these institutions that are prescribing rules for the implied contracts of the relationships that we have, and um, how much in alignment are those rules of those institutions with our own convictions? So for me, this is definitely giving me a little Jupiter feel, because this full moon actually is sextile Jupiter and the sun is trine Jupiter, even though it's past exact, it's separating at this point. But obviously, I think that given this card coming up, it's important and it's relevant to um, what's going on right now. So we've got the Ten of Swords. There is a little bit of a narrative happening here. The Ten of Swords is like, if you think that you're going to resolve this problem by thinking and rethinking and overthinking and rethinking and overthinking and analyzing, eh, probably not. The Ten of Swords speaks to beating a dead horse, or self flagellation through your mind. It speaks of really thinking to the point that the intellect is no longer a useful or valuable tool to solve problems, that the intellect may have turned in on itself, and it's keeping you from actual clarity. It's fogging you up. In this particular card of the Ten of Swords, there is this, I'm trying to find the window. Where is it? There is this like kind of pile of blood or liquid on the floor, and it's kind of like your mind has turned in on itself, and it's really not helping you to solve the problems. On the other side of the Hierophant, we have the wheel. And in this particular card, we've got an angel, the Sphinx, an eagle, a bull, and um, a lion, technically, or rather, I don't know what that figure is with the spikes. Um, in more generic, or rather, cards that conform to the Rider Waite Coleman Smith version of this card generally um, have the symbols that represent the four fixed signs. So we have Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and what am I forgetting? Aquarius. Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius is the four fixed sign. The Wheel of Fortune generally means a shift in season, a change in the cycle. There are changes like death that come and like snatch something from your life or change things in a way that are irrevocable. But the wheel often talks about a shift in seasons. Summer comes, then fall, then winter, then spring, childhood, adolescence, teenagehood, young adulthood, middle age, elderly. You have the maiden and the crone, the warrior and the magician, and all of these different phases and cycles of um, matriculating through life, as it were. And so the wheel talks to us about how we are moving into different seasons. Um, Oftentimes, the Ten of Swords means failure of some kind, means that this thing did not work out, and that the fretting was for naught. I've had that card come up for that. So I want to keep reading, and I want to come back to these cards and not necessarily spend too much, because I realized I did that in the other videos. And then by the time we got to the end, it's like, okay, so let's move this along. Now we have the Eight of Cups, the Nine of Wands, and the Two of Pentacles. This is really simple and straightforward. The Eight of Wands talks about leaving behind something that you have been invested in emotionally. Cups talk about what is our desire? What are we doing with our feelings? How do we feel um, about this particular thing? And Um, what have we invested in this thing that we want that means something to us? And the Eight of Cups says, I mean, if you look at the figure, these cups are stacked so nicely and neatly, and this person is just walking away from them. So this person was building something or put a lot of emotional energy into something, and the Eight of Cups is abandoning that and leaving that behind because for whatever reason, I don't know why. The Nine of Wands and the Two of Pentacles. Nine of Wands. Now, this card is a lot different than in other decks. Generally, the person is not facing forward and they don't have such a jubilant or um, I would say like strong posture. It's more so like a sense of bracing. But this person is in a fortress, in a castle, right? Oh, right. This person is in a fortress, right? You see those little squares? They're like at the top of the castle and all of these wands. So this person is protecting themselves and bracing themselves for something, right? Wands talk about the burdens that we carry, how we're using our will, again, the investment of the will. What is it that we are deeply invested in energy wise, actions that we have taken? And the Nine of Wands talking about being burdened. Like we're doing the most, we've done the most, or the most has been done to us. Oftentimes, the Nine of Wands speaks of persevering against continual difficulty. And then we've got the Two of Pentacles, which talks to us about limitations, right? These are limitations in our time and in our energy and having to make do with what we have, not really having the freedom of time and energy or ample resources to do something. And so the juggling of the Two Pentacles talks about, okay, this is all I got. How am I going to work with it? So if we go back and recap what we have so far, we have the Devil card, which is speaking to us about being in material reality. It speaks to us about the trappings of being in a physical body and all of the things that we need in order to sustain the body. It talks to us about what does it mean to survive and thrive in the material world? What are the things that we need to do that? And what does success look like for us? What does it look like for us to feel like I have conquered this? I have made my mark. I have bent this world, the material reality, the physical existence of my life. I bent it to my will. I have subdued it and controlled it. Or am I crushed by it? Does it fold in on me? Am I retreating into myself because I feel like I cannot thrive? Um, I cannot thrive in this world. I don't have the things that I need. I constantly have money problems. My health is failing me. This is what the Devil card means. It admonishes us to really come down into our bodies, out of our minds, and to really feel and think about, okay, do I have what I need? Am I making it? Am I struggling or not? We have Then we've got the Ten of Swords, the Hierophant, and the Will. And the Hierophant coming to me now as I'm looking at it in this context, next to the Ten of Swords, really to me speaks of someone feeling like they cannot live up to the expectations that society has for them, especially if we go back to the devil. You know, this could mean that someone is wanting to succeed in life in a particular way, and they're wanting to um, have the markers of material success, a home, maybe a family, maybe career success, and making a certain amount of money. But the Ten of Swords and the Hierophant is talking about the ways in which we feel like we failed at that, the ways we feel like we have not, uh, we are unable to or have not embodied the expectations that society has for us based on the roles that we've been ascribed and the implicit contracts of those roles that we've been given. The Ten of Swords and the Hierophant says, "Wow, you really feel like you're just struggling to make it in this world." And that you have not found a way to circumvent the expectations for you, or maybe you just feel like you can't make it given the social expectations. And so the will tells us that this is a moment of a season change, a shift in the cycle, that You are subject to change of some kind that's not necessarily in your control. Um, the wheel really does speak of time, the wheel of time. And so this is more of an inevitable shift in seasons. Just like I said before, after spring comes summer, and after summer comes winter. Well, hopefully, after spring comes summer, or after winter comes spring, because it is April 14th and it's a full fledged blizzard outside in Chicago. So I don't really know about those rules anymore. What is time? What are seasons? No. Again, you know, asking yourself, in what ways do you feel like you have not lived up to the expectations that society has for you? In the implicit contracts of your relationships, what are the ways you feel like you have failed or you feel like you can't make it? When it comes to material success in your life, what ways do you feel like you are struggling to succeed? You're struggling to cope, you're struggling to make it. And do the institutions that prescribe remedies for our implicit social contracts, are they helping or hindering you, right? Um, I think that the fundamental thing, especially when we talk about Venus being so important this week, is that we all have a desire to be validated. Whether I said this on Twitter, and I really want to read this verbatim because I feel like this is a very quotable thing um, for all of us. Um, so, what did I say here about Venus? I said that fundamentally, whether in the natal chart or by transit, Venus asks, what kinds of changes and adaptations do you make in order to be in relationship and participate in community, right? What kinds of adaptations, what kinds of changes and adjustments, how willing are you to shift, right? Because Aries is very much, I'm doing this because I can. I'm not considering anyone else because I don't have to, right? I'm doing what I want to because I can. It's important for us to feel like that it is important for us to feel like we can move, right? I always talk about the very first Mars return is between 17 and 24 months. And at this moment, we walk. And if you're not walking, there's literally some physical developmental thing that's happening to your actual body that keeps you from walking. And so the autonomy that comes with being able to walk is, I'm walking because I can. There's no deeper reason to why you walk. Right now, of course, you might be going somewhere, and that brings in some other energies or ideas around the will. But the fundamental, essential function of the will is to move, right? To move through the world, to act on the world around you. And so Venus asks us, like, okay, you have this raw will, right? But are you going to run down the street naked and scream? Yeah, maybe you are, but we might question your sanity if you do that, right? Because there are these implicit contracts or explicit laws around, like, well, you don't do that. Like, you don't, I mean, you can, but okay, like, all right. Um, so then we get to the Eight of Cups, the Nine of Wands, and the Two of Pentacles. There really is this sense of feeling defeated in these cards. And I'm really hoping that the last three cards give us some hope, because I don't want to leave y'all feeling defeated. But there really is a sense of being defeated in these cards right now. And sometimes that just means that, man, you're going through a rough time. You're still going through a rough time. And you're wondering when things are going to change. And you're wondering when you will be able to live up to the expectations that you have for yourself, that the world has for you. Again, we all want to be validated. This is a very fundamental human thing to want to be validated. And so the Hierophant isn't always somebody imposing law and order for you, but it's reminding you that I want to be accepted. I want to be a part of community. But what is the cost we pay to do that? Right? We adapt, we change, we adjust. So the Eight of Cups talks about having invested, right? Maybe investing in a particular role or whatever expectations are had of you, but you're abandoning them, you're leaving them. And on the other side of this Eight of Cups is the Nine of Wands. So this is why I say these cards feel so defeated, because even after you abandon this thing, the Nine of Wands is like there's still difficulty on the other side, right? There's still this sense, this Two of Pentacles, of not having everything that you need to survive, and still needing to deal with the real expectations and needs of having a physical body and living in this physical world. So yeah, I'm hoping that these next few cards speak to us about how we can move forward and move on from this, because Uh, oh wow. This is very interesting. Um, Spirit, I'm just so glad that these cards aren't going to leave us in the doldrums because I don't have it in me to do that to the people today, and I know that they don't want it either. So these cards are promising. I am going to pick up the camera now and turn this around. So, all right, there we have the Devil. There is the Ten of Swords, Hierophant, and the Wheel. Then we have the Eight of Cups. Yeah, don't turn on me. Then we have the Eight of Cups, the Nine of Wands, and the Two of Pentacles. And then we have the Ace of Wands, the Sun, and the Six of Cups. What's very interesting about these cards to me is how I talk about full moons, meaning that we can't go too far in one direction. And when I see the order of these cards, there is this sense in these cards that maybe you don't have what it takes to do what is expected of you, that you can't live up to the rules, that you can't conform in the ways that you're being asked or expected to, and that you're willing to leave behind something that you've invested in because you no longer feel like you can do it. But the issue in these cards is that on the other side of the Eight of Cups is not, oh, I'm free and I'm liberated and I'm succeeding. It's the Nine of Pentacles, it's the Nine of Wands and the Two of Pentacles, which is really saying, okay, maybe that really wasn't what the problem was. Maybe, okay, yes, I feel like I cannot live up to the expectations. I can't participate in community or relationship in this way. The implied contract of this particular institution, social, political, whatever it may be, um, is is something that I feel like I can't do it. But the Nine of Wands and Two of Pentacles says on the other side of walking away from something that you have invested in is continued difficulty and maybe kind of being able to focus on the real problem, which, given the Devil on the bottom of the deck, the real problem seems to be, how am I faring in this world, right? When I strip away all of the things that um, might be artifice, right, or artifice, might be artificial. And I come down to me being in a physical body that needs food, that needs shelter, that needs to acquire things, that consumes and digests things, that needs a place to lay my head, that needs money to buy groceries, that needs money to put gas in my car to get around. When I strip away the artifice of all of the things that I feel are pressing upon me socially, I'm left with the Nine of Wands and the Two of Pentacles. I mean, this is literally what the cards are saying, that there's this sense of needing to abandon something. And maybe you thought that in abandoning this thing, you would find the peace or liberation that you were looking for, when in fact, it's only distilling the true nature of the challenge in your life right now, which is figuring out how to work with limited time, money, and energy, right? Not necessarily having um, the things that you need, and being able to brace yourself physically, right? In this very literal, like, batten down the hatches. Like, that's how I always think of this card. Batten down the hatches. The storms are coming, or the storm is not stopped, or it's not going to leave for another few days. So you got to figure out how to make do with the food in your refrigerator, right? Until you get some more money, right? Or until you get some more time. I mean, sometimes the cards are really literal in this way. So here at the bottom, the last row, which I just showed you, is the Ace of Wands, the Sun, and the Six of Cups. Um, I love tarot, y'all, and I'm trying not to be emotional today, but I love tarot. I love doing this with y'all, and I love being an instrument for spirit, the universe, goddess, God, all of those people to speak through me. So I don't know, this is just a happy moment for me. So in that regard, even though these cards are rough. But when we get to the last row, there's hope. We have the Ace of Wands, the Sun, and the Six of Cups. This is so funny. A lot of times, like as a part of my personal tarot practice, I like will use my tarot app and draw some cards or have a card of the day. I have all kind of practices around like my personal tarot that really tries to intersect like tarot and astrology, not with ascribing astrological significations to cards, but drawing cards to like correlate with the moon changing signs and different stuff like that. So yesterday, in just like a little three card draw that I pulled to for the day, the card the sun came, and it was so funny because when I went back and looked at it at the end of the day, it was on like a Rider Waite Coleman Smith, just a regular deck, and it was a little kid like riding this horse in the sun. And literally yesterday, it was sunny outside. It was like 55, 60 degrees, and I took my son out on his bike, and I was like, wow, that is so literal and cool and fun. But that's not how the sun looks in this deck. In this deck, we have the sun with the all-seeing eye of Ra. We have these beautiful waves and clouds. We have this hand. In this particular deck, this is the Golden Thread Tarot. In this particular deck, the sun harkens back to the Pentacles. Um, so I don't know why this particular one, the Two of Pentacles, don't have it in here, but here's the Two of Pentacles. But like in the Knight of Pentacles, like these greenery here is wheat that is growing in the field. So I almost feel like if I were to put this card above, I wonder if I could find it. Almost wonder if I like put that sun like above the Knight of Pentacles, like it would like complete a picture where the sun. Okay, see here's the Seven of Pentacles. You see those little leaves again, right? I could put that card above that one. The Knight of Pentacles is my favorite card in this deck, so I kind of want to find it and show it to y'all since I'm not going to draw no cards no more. I can do that. Where is it? Um, I want to show you the wheat, like this knight out in the field, who is growing wheat. And of course, I'm looking for it and cannot find it. All right, whatever. Anyways, the sun in this card does harken back to some of the Pentacles cards, which again is important when the devil is kind of our general significator for this reading. Um, thank y'all. Thank you, Reed. Don't make me cry, guys. I'm too emotional. You guys are so sweet. You guys are really sweet. So the Ace of Wands, the I knew this was gonna happen, so don't judge me. I just been having a storehouse of tears, and of course, you guys with your sweetness trigger them to fall. But the sun here in this particular tarot deck, I keep trying to say harkens back to the Pentacles, which is about the material reality. Material reality is not, oh my God, I'm trapped in a body in this earth, and I just want my spirit to be free. No, I literally mean I don't mean deep like that. I just literally mean like, what can you perceive with your senses? I'm like deep in this study of Jung's Jungian analytical psychology and a lot of his ideas about personality, individuation, the consciousness. And I was just reading about the four personality types that the Myers-Briggs typology is based on. And you have sensing and thinking and feeling and intuition. And sensing literally means people who interface with the world in a very tactile way. What can be seen with my eyes, heard with my ears, felt with my skin, tasted with my mouth, right? Smelled with my nose. This is what sense means. So when we talk about pentacles, we talk about that kind of interaction and interfacing with the world. And when we talk about the devil, we're talking about that particular interfacing with the world in a very material sense. Um, so the sun, I love this card, even though it's not like the regular Rider Waite Smith, which has like this little naked boy riding a horse in a field of flowers in the sun. Like, yeah. The sun I always liken to when you walk into a room and it's dark, right? This is the moon card. When you walk into a room and it's dark and you may have an idea of where everything is, but you're still feeling your way through and you don't know if the furry thing that you're touching is a gremlin, or if it's your favorite stuffed animal, Bubba. And so you're kind of like, draw your hand back. This is the fear that comes with the unknown and literally not being able to see or perceive with your senses, right? But the sun is that moment you turn on the light and you're like, oh, that's just my favorite stuffed animal, Bobo. Or, wow, that really was a gremlin. Glad I didn't touch it, right? But generally, the sun is the removal of fear that comes with clarity, with being able to see clearly, with being able to perceive things as they are without the darkness, without the fear of the unknown. The sun is right next to the Ace of Wands. The Ace of Wands is the key in the ignition, car in gear. You're just about to take your foot off the brake, release the clutch, and put on the gas and go, right? This is the Ace of Wands. Aces, again, I've said before, remind us of the cardinal signs. What does the Ace of Wands remind us of at this fire? Cardinal Aries, right? So the Ace of Wands is this readiness, the opportunity, the get up and go. If we kind of follow the narrative just of how the suits are moving, right, we would in some ways move from the Nine of Wands. Let me see if I can show you this. You would in some way move from the Nine of Wands right at the center to the Ace of Wands. And the narrative of how the wands alone uh, uh, progress or evolve in this reading is going right. I mean, the Nine of Wands is right at the center, and this tells us that this is really the heart of the thing, that you're feeling beat up by life. And this is Paul. Beat up by life. You're feeling like you don't have what it takes. Like, man, can I just get a break? How long do I have to stay in this defensive posture and this defensive position, waiting for life to just bring another thing at me, right? The Ace of Wands, um, in some context, might mean like, oh, here's another thing, and then the straw breaks the camel's back, because if the Ten of Wands was right after this ace, I would be like, brace yourselves, people, it's gonna be a rough ride. But that's not what these cards are saying. Um, this is an eagerness to use your will. It's, you know what it feels like. It feels like you've been trying and trying and trying your damnedest to make headway in this world, to be successful, to acquire the things that you need to thrive and subdue and function in this material world. But the Nine of Wands is just like one thing after another just keeps coming at you. And that Two of Pentacles says, I'm doing the best that I can with what I have. Like, what more do you want from me? I don't, I if you're looking for a job, I've applied for a job. I've been working, and it's still like, nope, you only got these two pentacles to work with. Dang it, Sambo, right? It's like, right? It's just like you got to do what you got to do with what you have. But the Ace of Wands speaks, and next to the Sun is like, oh man, it's some clarity that comes with finally being able to see the impact of your efforts, the impact of your will on the world around you. I want to find what I wrote about Aries Sun because, oh, come on. I want to find what I wrote about the Sun transiting Aries because I think that it is so, so relevant. Um, this is from the weekly forecast that just ended. So, whatever last Monday was, that's the date on it. So, I said Sunday, April 14th, 2019, the Sun enters Aries. The mind subservient to the will, the intellect an instrument of the strength of will. What is the will? The power the mind has over its own actions. That's consciousness, being aware of your actions, right? The power the mind has over itself. Consciousness that animates the body, the force that impels one to act and be. The Sun is immediately trine Jupiter in Sagittarius once it crosses over into Aries. So, for all intents and purposes, the Moon is actually going to translate the light of the Sun to Jupiter, meaning that as soon as the Sun enters Libra, it is going to immediately sextile Jupiter, and after doing that, immediately oppose the Sun. So that the Moon kind of acts as a translator of the light of Jupiter to the Sun, even though the aspect has already passed and it's separating. So it's one of those times where we get a reinvigoration of this particular aspect. So, of the trine between Jupiter and Sagittarius, I said, the Sun in Aries and Jupiter in Sagittarius, I said, do you believe what you see, right? Because the Sun is perception. How are your convictions reinforced by your perceptions? This trine is significant on the heels of an irritating square between Sun in Pisces and Saturn in Sagittarius last week. That configuration magnified how our perceptions are shaped by things outside the purview of our conscious awareness. Now, with the Sun exalted in Aries, trine Jupiter at home in Sagittarius, there is a sense that you are in control of how you perceive things because you're conscious of the intentions and convictions that shape them. And check this, right? What did I just say about this? This is what I said last night in this. Perhaps the lights come on for a moment during this trine. That's what the Sun is. The Sun turns the lights on. That's what a full moon is. The full moon allows us to perceive the light of the Sun. You cannot go outside and stare at the Sun without burning and damaging your eyeballs. And so the moon is the way that that light is translated. The moon brings the light down to earth. It allows us to process and use that light in our bodies to be perceived by our eyes. We've got the Six of Cups here at the end. And again, if we are watching the narrative of Suits, the Eight of Cups, through all of this, through the Nine of Wands and Two of Pentacles, the Ace of Wands, and the Sun, lands at the Six of Cups. What is this? What is the Six of Cups? The Six of Cups is someone or something from the past returning to you. That is the common way. I remember when the first times I was doing tarot reading for pay, I was set up at something here in Chicago called what was it called? Anyways, it was where all of a certain community of people, we used to get together at open mics in the late 90s and early 2000s. And so this was kind of a picnic we would do each summer. We would collect school supplies for kids. But anyways, this was in 2011, August. I think it was the first one over in Washington Park. I had set up a table, and this was the first iteration of Dana doing like divinatory work for pay. And I had my little table, and somebody came up and I did a tarot reading, and they were asking about a relationship, and I pulled out the cards, and the Six of Cups was there, and I was like, oh, someone from your past has just returned to you, huh? And they were shook because they were like, yeah, that's exactly what just happened. I was like, yeah, this is a person that you've known before, a person that you have something previously established with. And so it's kind of like the Eight of Cups is abandoning, but the Six of Cups is coming back around, and it is coming to return into your life. And so overall, what I'm really getting from this reading is how are we, what, some of the words that are coming to me is like rightly prescribing the problem. Like, what is the real problem? It is very, very hard for many of us to say, I just want to be accepted. I just want to be validated. I just want to feel like I'm succeeding. I just want to feel like I'm making people proud. I just want to feel like I am being the best, insert your gender, racial, religious, nationality, identity in. I just want to be the best blank that I could be. Hi, Simon. In the bed. Okay, we'll take it off and get a clean one. A guidepost for how we can show up in the world. Remember, I said that Venus fundamentally asks us. Let me find it so I can read it word for word. Um, Venus fundamentally asks us, what kinds of changes, meaning in myself, my persona, in my behavior, what kinds of changes and adaptations do you make in order to be in relationship and participate in community? The Hierophant is asking this question. How are you conforming to the expectations, right? And so when we see the devil in the Ten of Swords, there really is this idea of failure, of maybe not fitting in or maybe wanting to, right? The devil really speaks of like, you're in this world. You are a social human being. And so to be in community, to be in relationship, to be social, you have to conform in some way, shape, or form. I literally said that, what did I say here? I said for, oh shoot, where is it? I said, after I asked this question, I said, some are unwilling or unable to change, right, to make those adjustments and those adaptations because the cost is too great. Others live on the other end of that spectrum, having no core around which to change, morphing and shape shifting as a way of being. So, this reading is really talking to us about the social expectations that make us look successful in the world, that there are certain roles that we want to play. And in order to play those roles, there are rules, right? Again, this is literally what I was talking about with this full moon. So the Eight of Cups talks about abandoning. We have that wheel, which is a shift, a change, an adjustment, right? Time goes on, and you feel like that it's a moment to abandon. And so, where in your life are you abandoning the expectations that people have for you? Where are you abandoning the roles that are prescribing certain expectations for you to behave a certain way? Where have you felt like a failure and you feel like even though you've invested so much emotionally, even though you've invested desire, like you have a desire or had a desire for this thing, what is it that you're actually willing to walk away from because there is this feeling of failure, of not being able to make it? A lot of times we feel like if we isolate ourselves in relationships and from community, that we will solve our problems. I mean, this is what depression and anxiety does, right? When we're feeling depressed, when the walls are closing in on us, we feel like we don't want to be a burden. We feel like there is a certain definition of depression that I've read. I've heard Jim Carrey repeat it, but there's this other person who has propagated this idea that I think is useful to think about. That depression comes when the skin that we've been wearing is so heavy, right? That we cannot, for some reason, show up exactly as we are. And the pressure to conform, the persona or mask that we put on becomes so heavy that we're kind of dying and crumbling behind it. And so the Eight of Cups sometimes may speak in this particular context of walking away from that mask, walking away from that persona, walking away from these expectations. And when we do that, when we isolate ourselves, when we're feeling depressed or anxious, or we're having troubles in our lives, and everything else around us just feels like it's adding on to the troubles that we already have, the Eight of Cups is saying, I'm willing to walk away from this thing that I've invested in because it's too heavy. I can't take it. But the Eight of Cups, I mean, I want you to see the figures in this. The Eight of Cups is literally walking away right into the Nine of Wands with the Two of Pentacles there. And so there is definitely this sense of like you cannot isolate yourselves as a means to solve your problems. And the devil is telling us what the actual problem is. For all of us, we want to be successful. We want to feel like, man, I got this life thing down. I'm making money. I can be independent. I can provide for myself. And I think that independence and autonomy is great words to bring in here just because of Aries is where the sun is. So another thing that's coming to me around the Nine of Wands and Two of Pentacles is the limited amount of resources that we have to deal with our problems when we isolate ourselves. I mean, this figure in the Nine of Wands is like, well, I'm just going to go up in my castle and hide with my problems, and I'm going to put my sticks up, and you guys can't come be with me or play with me because whatever, right? I'm in my fields, whatever it may be. And the Two of Pentacles talks about the limited resources that we have in isolation in order to deal with this thing. So we keep coming back to this idea of what is the cost of community? What is the cost of isolation? What is the cost of, or how do we negotiate with our own will and drive for autonomy and the social expectations implicit, the contracts that we're involved in, explicit or implicitly? How do we reconcile these two things? We get to the Ace of Wands, we get to the Sun. I'm just thinking how much an hour. Okay, we get to the Ace of Wands, we get to the Sun and the Six of Cups. The Six of Cups, the Six of Cups, and we have this renewed will. We have this sense of having turned in on ourselves, walking away from this thing, and really finding the inner fire to drive us forward, connecting to our deepest motivation, the strength of will, the clarity that comes and says that your actions matter. I don't care how much life has beat up on you. Get up and try one more time. I don't care how hard things have been, how difficult your life has been. Again, this Nine of Wands is batting down the hatches because it's like there is no relief in sight, right? I have to work with what I have to work with, and it's limited, and I don't have nothing to give to anybody else. I barely have anything to give to myself. But the Ace of Wands says, get up one more time, put your best foot forward, feel that entitlement that your actions matter, that you can move this world, that you can be a force that moves and changes, that you don't have to pull back. Part of that Nine of Wands is that you're pulling back and surrendering to the world caving in on you. Where the Ace of Wands, that exalted sun, is saying, no, I'm going to subdue my mind. I can impact, I can make a change, I can use the force of my will to push back, and I don't have to crumble against these things. The sun talks about the clarity of being able to see the impact of your actions. And whatever that thing is that you walked away from with the Eight of Cups there, you see that? The Six of Cups is a return, a reunion, a coming back together, a connection. When we're talking about actual relationships, the Six of Cups definitely talks about fertility. It talks about love and bonding and intimacy. I mean, in this card, you got these rabbits, which are known to copulate copiously and have a lot of offspring. So this could be the fertility of seeing our actions produce our desired results. But oftentimes, especially because we have the Eight of Cups here, that is about abandoning something, the Six of Cups is about returning to that thing. So how can you reintroduce yourself to community, to relationship? How can you reintroduce yourself to these roles and expectations with a clear sense of feeling like your will has impact, of feeling empowered? A lot of times when we are in community and relationships, we feel like we are crushed by the expectations and that we cannot fill the shoes, right? I'm repeating this because every time I say it, the language changes and shifts a little bit. So I'm hoping that whoever this is relevant for, you all can hear it. Um, um, the Six of Cups talks about reunion and reuniting and coming back. And those cups will still be there while you deal with your stuff, right? That sense of community and belonging, you can come back in and try the shoes on again later, right? Maybe it'll fit this time. I think that that is really all that I have to say. If you guys have any questions, I'm going to type it this time because sometimes I'll be saying it and there's a delay. And I'm going to answer your question, L. L asks, Happy Sunday. I remember you mentioned once that compatible moon signs are very important in relationships. What are your takes on house overlays? Moon square, moon synastry, but both. Okay, the second uh, question I can't really get into. Um, if there is any contact, whether it's conjunction, trine, square, opposition between the moon in your chart and of other person's chart, we know that there is some type of connection between your living place. So there is some conversation, something is happening between your actual dwelling and living places. So you're moving together, maybe you're living separate, maybe you're trying to integrate into each other's families. Also, moon connections have a lot to do with your lifestyle, like just your daily living in your body and inhabiting space, and what's the relationship between those two things. Um, always, you always want to examine a person's the condition of a person's moon in their own chart before you compare, because sometimes you need that square between the moon in order to offset some other tension that's happening in this particular person's chart. So if they've got a moon something opposition, the square can be an outlet, right? There can be enough of a sense of familiarity with this person that it offsets the tension that this person naturally has in their personal life. That T square you're creating kind of creates an outlet, as it were. Um, House overlays, that's a little bit complicated. When there are planets in the houses, there's definitely this sense of meeting someone in a particular place. So if your ascendant, if you don't stop busting in here, okay, get out. I'm finishing my reading. Well, you gotta let it melt. Your shorts are on backwards and your shirt is on backwards. Close the door. That, like, for example, if your ascendant is falling in a person's fourth house, like, this just literally might mean that you eventually live together or you're spending a lot of time in each other's homes, or there's some interaction with you and this person's parents or something like that. If your moon falls in their second house, obviously what impact are you having on their finances, right? That kind of thing. Do we have any other questions for the actual cards? No, I think y'all are good. Um, I'm going to take a picture of these cards and post them on Twitter. And I'm just really glad that this reading did not end with um, did not end with like what it started with. I'm glad we have some type of hope at the end. I'm going to go back and watch this for myself to see how that goes. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'll be doing this in a couple weeks for our new moon in Aries. That is on May 4th at 20 degrees of Aries, 2021 degrees. Can't remember. I think it's 20 degrees of Aries. And I'll try to do it that Sunday. Yeah, I should be able to do it that Sunday, which is like the 29th or 30th of April. I can't remember. And we'll do a reading for the new moon and we'll see what kind of themes carry over from this reading. Uh, uh, just a couple of announcements. I have begun offering dream interpretation, excuse me, as a standalone service on my website. And I did write up a brief kind of tip sheet for how to, excuse me, remember your dreams if you have trouble doing them. That's up on my website. It's my latest blog post at thepeoplesoracle.com. I'm also offering my eclipse special, which those who've been following me for a while know I do this every year as we get close to eclipse season, so that we can arm. And I'm telling you, probably only second to the Saturn return reading, the eclipse reading is probably one of my favorite readings because, like, when I was doing the eclipse readings last year, and I was laying out the timeline for the eclipse story and the relevant house. It was just like boom, 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 boom. And I really felt like my clients were able to leave empowered, really understanding the narrative of what was happening in their life and how the eclipses were playing a role in that. Yeah, I'm not going to make any more announcements. I'm going to go now. Y'all have a really good Sunday. Bye.